नमस्कार। रसोई के रहस्य के फेस्टिवल्स ऑफ इंडिया में आप सबका एक बार फिर से स्वागत है। फेब्रुअरी है महीना वैलेंटाइंस का। एवरीवन इज सेलिब्रेटिंग लव इन सम फॉर्म और द अदर। तो मुझे लगा व्हाई शुडंट रसोई के रहस्य आल्सो पिक अप समथिंग to celebrate, some love to celebrate, and the joy of giving and sharing in this season. The last episode of February, we thought we have to celebrate love. How and with whom, you'll see soon enough. My guests today are a duo who are partners in various ways. Partners in crime, are friends, and many more things. What they are, they will tell you themselves. Let me introduce to you my first guest, Arathi Ramani Sen. Arathi, welcome to Rasoi Ke Rahasya.
Thank you, Payal. It's so good to be back here. And
Yes,
I'm really
absolutely.
looking forward.
It's wonderful to have you back. And in case people don't remember her, मतलब आपने उसका एपिसोड नहीं सुना है, प्लीज जाके सुनिए एपिसोड नंबर 5 में बसंत पंचमी. There are many stories and fabulous recipes from Arathi. My next guest is her partner in crime, like I already mentioned, and he is someone very special. Without wasting any more time, let me introduce to you Advay Sen. Advay, welcome to my show.
Hi, thank you so much for having me.
Now, आप कोई सोच रहा होगा कि what is this? What is this all about in any case? So, Advay and Arathi have a wonderful bond. A bond of cooking together, a bond of doing many things together. Like Arathi herself says that Advay is one little part of her that's out there doing things quite like how she would do them. Let me come to Advay and ask him. Advay, I believe you're this fabulous cook who loves not just to innovate, but to cook and feed everybody. Is that true?
I don't know about fabulous cook, but I am trying to learn from my mother and trying to become a better cook.
Fabulous. So there it is. Advay is Arti's son and he's all of 40. And like I said, I know he's a fabulous cook because I've seen all the things he does. So you have to take my word for it. And when did you start cooking, Advay? Where this whole thing of cooking is coming from? Where is it all coming from? Why don't you tell us?
My passion for cooking really took root in, I think, about 7 years ago when I was 7. But I really started cooking on my own only around age 10.
Okay. And what was it like at age 7? What was the curiosity? What is it that drew you into the kitchen? At age 7, people want to only sit and eat all the fabulous things that mom cooks in the kitchen or everything that is available off the shelf. So why the kitchen?
So all my life, I've been very attached to my mother. I've always followed her around and always noticed whatever she's doing.
Mm-hmm.
And I always used to see her coming out of the kitchen with these big platters of food every Sunday when we used to sit at the dining table in the living room and all eat lunch together.
Mm-hmm.
And there was this curiosity inside me that grew and grew, and I just had to know exactly what was happening in the kitchen and what was the source of all that delicious food.
That sounds really interesting. So curiosity to go into the kitchen and not just pick what was cooked, but to look at what was happening. That's truly interesting. Arathi, what was your entire reaction to your 7-year-old saying that he wanted to do things in the kitchen, or his curiosity? How did you go about abetting this?
I think I was very excited to see his interest in the kitchen because it was all about, like you said, it was always a partnership between me and my kids. So I would be as excited to play with them, and I loved it when they reciprocated and wanted to be as excited in something that I love doing.
Mm-hmm.
So when he wanted to start out in the kitchen, one day when I was making chicken curry, he said, "Mama, I want to make." So he was given a stool on which he had to stand because he couldn't see the kadai or the gas stove.
Yes.
And then we started with, telling him that this is jeera, now you put this, now you put that. Then he took a ladle and started stirring. And that was his initiation into cooking.
So no fear, no worry. My 7-year-old at the gas stove on the cooktop with hot stuff, with everything that could splash. Aarti?
Not really, because I just felt that while we teach them cooking, and while there is a danger, like you mentioned, in terms of if you throw in something into very hot oil, it can splatter, or the child can touch their arm to the kadai if not careful. I think it's very important to also tell them how to ward off these risks.
True.
From the beginning, if you teach them the right way to do it, then there is no risk, and then a freak accident can happen anytime with anyone, right?
Absolutely.
But other than that, when you tell them that, okay, this is how you put the masala in, this is where you hold the ladle, this is how you hold the karchi, then they also grow up knowing the right way to go about it.
Advay, what did it feel like at standing on top of that stool and having your mom guide you do these, through this process of making chicken curry? What was the first thought?
So despite my role in the making of the chicken curry being very, very small, just adding a few already measured ingredients and stirring the pot every few minutes, it made me feel so proud that I have had some part in making this delicious chicken curry. And it made me feel so excited to keep learning, so that one day I could make the curry for my mother without her having to tell me every single step.
And out here, Payal, what I would want to add is that when the chicken curry was brought onto the table, and every single member of the family said, "Oh my God, this is so delicious." I mean, this little child was just beaming. It was like, that extra touch made the whole difference. And I think that is what is important for a child, right? They want
Absolutely. And at the end of the day, Advay, like you said, it was just a matter of putting pre-measured ingredients into it. If that's how things, what are chefs all about at the end of the day? They're just looking at a prefabricated recipe and just putting everything in. A massage does all the work and they come stir and go away. So you were right there, waiting for great things to come your way. So after that, now you said age 10 is when you actually started cooking on your own. So between age 7 and age 10, what was the, work in the background that was going on? Advay, I can go first, and Aarti, then you can tell me what was the prep like.
Sure.
So after the chicken curry, I was hooked on cooking. I just couldn't stop. So I started making the atta for rotis. I started gundo in the atta. And slowly anything that needed to be cut, I would slowly cut all of those vegetables. My mother bought me a dull plastic knife and I would struggle and cut all of the vegetables with the knife.
Okay. That would have been quite an art on its own, trying to cut vegetables with a plastic dull knife.
Yeah, that was a skill I think very few people have as it is. Yeah, and even things like the atta that he was talking about, gundoing it and getting it to the correct consistency. And then he always wanted to roll out a puri or a roti.
Wow.
And I learned a round puri or roti quite late in life.
Right.
So it was like, okay, fine. I was very confident. ये तो अभी सारे maps बनेंगे, क्या फर्क पड़ता है? But this kid just rolled it out into a perfect circle.
Wow.
He's very observant of what one is doing in the kitchen.
Correct.
So even when he would be around me, he'd constantly keep watching me as to what is she doing? What is she? So when I was teaching him, even if I looked at it as that I'm passing on something to a small child, he's already absorbed the nuances previously looking at what I'm doing.
Correct.
So that's how it progressed, and slowly there would be 2 rotis he would make for me every time we made rotis.
Wonderful.
And when they got better, then he would make puris and stuff like that.
I think that's something that after all the years of cooking, every woman's dream is to get the round roti. I tell you, the number of people asking me in our groups about how can I make a round roti. Advay, you just nailed it right from the word go. So I think that was a lot of heartache and a lot of questions that didn't need to be answered at all. So
and I think Advay has become every woman's dream now.
Correct. Totally. I think और कुछ नहीं तो अगर रोटी गोल बन जाती है, पूरी गोल बन जाती है, तो you have it nailed down just so accurately. I think बाकी सब is all details, we can manage any of it. So the rotis, you continued making rotis and eating of dough became better and better because truly, I think your roti cannot turn out right, your puri can't turn right if the dough is not correct. And sabzi cutting was happening. What else was happening?
So slowly as I started to grow more confident in my ability to make edible food, I started to pick up on my mother's other hobby, which was baking. So I started making cupcakes, and whenever my mother would make cupcake batter, I would want to spoon a little of it into some mini cupcake molds and make my own little cupcakes.
Right.
And I think cupcakes was actually the first thing I made on my own at around age 9 or 10.
Wonderful. And so the batter was made by mom, and you made the cup. You ladled it in and made it, or did you make the batter on your own as well?
When I started out, my mother would make she'd measure out all the ingredients and mix them all, and then just give me like a spatula and tell me to mix the flour and tell me how to add the milk and what to do. And then slowly I started making the batter on my own. I started finding my own recipes and trying my own things.
How did that feel?
It felt really nice that I could come out of the kitchen and give my mother something that she used to do every day for us. Every day there would be a fresh hot meal on the table.
Right.
And the fact that I could give my mother some of that, like just be able to sit and have a meal come to you.
So wonderful. What a fabulous
thing.
What a wonderful thing to do, because it's about that, the sense of pride and the sense of actually contributing. I think that's what's more important than anything else, to think that you've contributed to the meal that is sitting at the table. You've contributed to everybody relishing and enjoying every morsel that is being picked up of that, isn't it?
And I think that is the joy of food and eating together, right? You don't really see whether the vegetable was cut evenly or the roti was perfectly round or the cupcake is iced properly. It's just the fact that everyone has contributed to that meal and we are sitting down together as a family and everyone's played a role in it, including the people who eat and appreciate it.
Absolutely.
And that's what bonds you at a very basic level.
That's so true, because it's, I think, one of the most basic, need of any human being is sustenance. Whether it is sustenance in the form of food, whether it is sustenance in the form of, companionship, love, whatever it is, something that sustains the body and the soul. That's what I think life's truly all about, isn't it?
Yes, and also I think anything which is made by someone for another person, I don't think you can put a value to it anymore. It's just so priceless.
Ekdam, absolutely true. So Advay, then 10 cupcakes happened, and slowly the emerging Advay started emerging. And after that, what happened?
After that, I think my mother is prompting me from the side. It was the first cake I ever made. So I think it was my mother's birthday, and she had left the house to go do something. So my father's mother and father had been visiting us at that point. So my grandmother helped me make a cake and bake it and ice it so that my mother could have a birthday cake.
How did it feel coming home to your birthday cake made by Advay and helped with his grandmother?
Oh, I don't think I have words to express the joy that is there. One, it was heart-shaped. It was just so perfect in every which. I'm sure there are much better tasting cakes, but that was like the best cake for me. Even Advay makes better cakes now, but I'll still never forget that cake.
Absolutely. And after all, the whole maa ka dil and all that, pehli jo roti banai thi aur pehli roti jo todi thi, all those things in any case are just so tangled up in the heartstrings that you can't do anything about it but keep going back to it.
And also I have a second son who used to give me grapes with tomato sauce. That was his idea of cooking. So Advay was like this genius in front of him.
Advay, how did it feel doing things differently from your brother, being the youngest in the family?
It felt like the one thing that I could actually do better than my brothers in.
Well, imagine. So were you, did they have things to say to you about you in the kitchen, cooking, baking, whatever it is, or were they supportive because they got lovely things to eat? How was it?
No one really said anything as long as there was food coming to their plates.
Very clear cut. Who does it, how you do it, I don't care, as long as there's something delicious to eat on my plate, right?
Absolutely.
So, Aarti, what was the teaching process? What was going on in the background as Advay was developing his love for cooking and his passion? He's already admitted that he wanted to be like his mom. So, what was mom doing in the background to help this cause?
See, like I've said before, for me, food is very special in the sense of sharing it.
Right.
It is very important for me to partake with others. And when Advay started cooking and I saw the same passion in him, that is, he wasn't cooking to learn a skill just for himself.
Right.
He was cooking to feed his family or his friends. He was cooking out of a place of love. And that was very thrilling for me because he's like an extension of me. And I could just see that same passion being passed down. And I think there's no greater pride than that, right?
Absolutely. So true. So true. So how did you help him hone his skills? Because the easiest things, like we discussed, are, when somebody starts cooking, the easiest thing is to use ready ingredients, let's say cheese and all the other things. So sugars and all of that. That's the tasty stuff. So how did that happen?
So initially, even here, it was more of cupcakes and desserts and anything made with a lot of cheese on top of it. And slowly, I started steering him towards other foods, which are nutritious also, which kind of give you an essence of what cooking is really about, how you treat the ingredients, what is special about the way you treat the ingredients, and the final outcome. And also, for me, there was never any fear or anything in the kitchen as far as Advay was concerned. It was more, I needed to just give him a free hand. So when he started out on his own at the age of 9 or 10, and I was quite sure that he knew the basics of being safe in the kitchen, I would step out. Mainly because as a person who's cooked for so many years, there would always be this urge to interfere if it was not done the way I did it.
Absolutely.
And I think that is the biggest deterrent for most people when it comes to learning a new skill.
Absolutely.
And he was given a free hand that you learn and you make your own mistakes, and maybe you'll even do it better than me, and I will learn something from you.
That's a wonderful give and take. How did that feel, Advay, when mom left you, gave you a free hand and said, do what you will? How did that feel?
It felt really good on the inside to know that I was trusted enough to do this on my own. And my mother was always very clear cut, either be safe or you will get cut, you will be burnt. And I did get cut, I did get burnt, but I learned, don't shove your hand in the oven, don't cut something in your hand.
Yes.
It just felt really good to be able to develop the skill on my own without having the constant interference that a lot of people will have.
And so once when the basics were in place and, you had started moving ahead and things like that, have you done things like mom did, cooking, certain things that she did a certain way, or she cooked some things that you enjoyed as well, and those were among the first things that you tried to do? Or did you step out and decide that you were going to create your own, space in the kitchen for yourself, and you were going to do your own thing and create your own creation?
So I've got a very stubborn streak in me, which I've inherited from my mother. And so initially I wanted nothing to do with her methods and how she cooked. I wanted to do my own thing. But then slowly, as I started cooking, I realized that she has a lot of experience that I can learn from. And there are things that she can teach me that no recipe can tell you to do.
So you had to keep going back and forth. Eventually, mom was the guru ultimately.
Yeah, even now that I'm more confident with cooking and I know that I can do it on my own, I keep running out to the living room and asking her questions.
But I have also learned so much from him in this process, because there are certain things we've done and we were not from the times of Google and YouTube and MasterChef things, right?
Yes.
So there's so many things we are very apprehensive to try. because they seem very alien to us, like doing the French style of cooking.
Absolutely.
It just feels very alien to us.
Yeah.
But these kids have no fear. And they don't mind failing. If the dish doesn't come out well, it doesn't come out well, but then we'll try. And that has given me so much confidence to try a lot of new methods, a lot of new recipes.
So you're learning in the process as well. See, that's the bottom line. I think if two people can work together, you don't essentially need to be standing in the same space and working together, but it's a matter of some amount of coordination that goes into creating the ultimate things. So Advay, do your mom and you cook together in the kitchen, or is it two people and too little space? It's best to be one person at a time. And I don't mean that literally.
See, like most houses in Mumbai, our kitchen isn't the most giant open space. It's quite a small room.
Okay.
But and me and my mother also don't really work and make the same dish.
Okay.
We'll always make like 2 pieces of a meal.
Uh-huh.
Like I will make a chicken and she'll make a side that goes with it, or the other way around. And I think for us, the way two people, the way we work together in a kitchen is almost like an art form, a dance of its own.
Very true.
Especially when there's so limited counter space, so you're always moving from this counter to the next, cutting your vegetables here and then just picking them up and taking them over to the other side of the kitchen.
It's very annoying, especially when you have to keep walking into people. I'm like that. I'm happiest working alone in my kitchen. I don't like people around me. I don't mind them helping me out, but there are very few people that I can work with in the kitchen and in tandem, which is what is very important. So Ati, how does it feel, to have him say that, you cook or I cook and we cook together, like, but at different times, in different spaces?
I think it's really beautiful because both of us, whatever we are making, comes out as a surprise partner to the main meal.
Right.
And each of us has our own skill set. Each
Correct.
of us is very good at one thing or the other. So when it comes together, the final meal is brilliant.
And that's what matters, the wow.
And that's all that
factor.
matters.
The wow.
Yes, that's all that matters. And I really love when he does it on his own, because when I eat it, I don't know what I'm going to eat. And then when I eat it, I'm like so thrilled with it and I want to learn how to do it. And that gives him the ability to teach me as well, which is very important, because I think the better you are as a teacher, the better you are as a cook.
Absolutely. And half the joy is in that, the joy is in learning. The joy, once again, is in sharing. It's in putting things together and, sharing the knowledge, sharing the information. And that's so exciting to think the next time that you try something that he's made. Has it happened?
Yes.
Mom's made something that you've made, Advay, and you've had to audit it and pass it or feel it?
I think there was at least a couple occasions where one of the staple things that I cook very often is a coffee and coconut flan. And my mother once, she made it for someone else to gift it away to someone else for, I think, one of her friend's daughter's birthdays. And she didn't add enough coffee. She didn't cook the caramel enough. So there was a very stark difference.
And it's good saying that, this is my signature dish. You just don't know how to do it right, Mom.
Oh, it felt very good to be able to say, this is mine, this is the better way I do it.
In the kitchen, Payal, we are not mother and son. We are just two people who are out there to learn from each other. Because the
And
dynamic...
also compete. I'm sure there's some sense of competition somewhere also.
Of course, yes. I'm sure after the flan, I must have made something where he couldn't have understood what is going on in here. But the whole point is, like, if you get into the dynamics of I am the parent and I am going to teach you, it doesn't always work, It has to be that, okay, I am here with you to learn from you and to teach you.
Absolutely. You have to level the playing field somewhat. I mean, sometimes it means in a lot of things in life, you have to sometimes lower your so-called standards to a point where you can relate to the other person. That, I think, is true of anything in life. You can't always sit on your high horse and say, it's my way or the highway. It doesn't quite work like that, I think, in just about.
And here, especially what I would like to add as mother of 3 boys, 3 children, gender irrespective, is that, especially with COVID, you've had children go through so much in terms of not having school, not having social interactions, constantly stuck to the computers. If you see the rise in the cases of mental illness, it's been huge.
Yes.
And I think when you have skill sets that you help them develop at home like these, and you build a platform where you can be friends or you can be partners, I think the communication opens up when it comes to times where they need to talk to you. And they don't look at you as just as an authority figure, but they look at you as someone who might understand and who will not look at it from their generation's point of view, but they will understand what I am going through. And that is so important for us today to keep our children safe and happy.
Absolutely, because it's just something that, like you said, communication happens in the most, unlikely of places and in the strangest ways. It's just a matter of keeping yourself aware and, your ears open. How has the COVID experience been for you, Advay? 2 years, 2.5 years almost, and being at home and things like that, and lots of stress, lots of being locked away. How have you coped with it? How has your cooking, helped you sort of stay sane, for lack of better word here?
I think I'm one of the few people who's actually done really well through COVID and really thrived. Mostly because my relationship with cooking and my mother is just so amazing that I always have that as like an outlet to go to whenever I'm stressed. And because of COVID, I have always been within walking distance of the kitchen. Like I could always just go to the kitchen and do something.
So is that a stress buster for you?
100%. Even now during my final exams, I have gone to the kitchen many times and just started cooking a meal.
And do you cook well when you're stressed? Is there something in particular that you think of? Is it again anything that comes to your mind? Because stress releasing is something that people do specific things at that point in time. There's either binge eating, or there's a sugar, craving, or there's a junk craving. So is there something specific that draws you into the kitchen when you're stressed and you say, okay, this is what I'm going to do because I'm stressed?
No, not really any specific thing. I think actually the stress just makes me want to cook, and it makes me cook a lot better. Because usually I'm really there is a recipe, I'm very strict that I have to follow every step of the recipe. But when I'm stressed, I just kind of zone out and do whatever.
Oh, wonderful. Arathi, how does that go?
There are two things that I want to add out here as far as COVID was concerned. So Advay and I cooked 400 meals, free meals for people during COVID.
Amazing.
So
fabulous.
So that was a huge thing which kind of also kept our value system in place, also gave us a chance to learn the value of food and the fact that despite such tough times, we are able to eat a hot meal and share that with others who are less fortunate. And we have these vegetable vendors who are Muslim, and they were going through Ramzan during that time, and they couldn't go back home. So we made the iftar and the sehri meals, both the meals for them. So we would wake up at 2 a.m. and cook for them so that they would have a hot meal at 4 a.m. And I think that really, I was very proud of Advay, because for a 14-year-old to get up at that hour or for 30 days of the month and do it day after day is just amazing. And I think when you can feed someone and when you share food, it is just a very spiritually uplifting experience.
It is, because that's what we've learned all the time. I mean, water and food are two things that I think from, generations we've seen our elders do that. And whether it is offering it to the fire, or whether it's offering it to a cow, or whether it's offering it to anybody who comes to your door, water and food are two things that I think, truly, I think the only word you can use is spiritual. And it's the sense of gratitude, of being able to understand that you have a hot meal while there are so many others over there who don't, and to be able to contribute in that, I think, fabulous. Advay, how did that feel?
It felt amazing to be able to share our love for food and share that in a way that will actually help someone's life.
So wonderful. It's just so wonderful to hear something like that. And I'm sure our listeners are going to learn so much. I hope at least, children and parents who are hesitant to take the step that you have taken so seamlessly, I'm quite sure it's going to matter. So now we have the experience, Advay. We have Advay at 14. Advay, who's, from what I see on social media, doing all sorts of fancy things and all sorts of fabulous things that I sit and drool over. So what is it today at this point that is your, favorite thing to do?
So I think throughout my journey with cooking, my favorite thing has really kept changing, kept evolving. So right now I am very into bread making and especially like Middle Eastern cuisine. So I've really been enjoying breads and the Lebanese and the Turkish food.
Artisanal kind of things.
Yeah, like a rustic hot meal that everyone can just sit at the table and all enjoy together.
I think truly there's nothing nicer than these rustic kind of things. So out of all this experience with bread making, what's the best that you have so far churned out?
Definitely my recent braided bread. So I recently made the challah, which is the Shabbat bread. And I think I put all of my experience, all my mother's experience with bread making, I poured all of that into this bread and it came out really, really well.
And how difficult was it? I mean, in the sense, I know bread making, you said in our conversation earlier, you had mentioned that the whole science behind the whole thing is very fascinating to see how things happen, what the reactions and all of that. So how has that developed for you in terms of bread making?
Bread is almost a living organism because the yeast is a living, breathing thing. And even the flour is very fickle. It's almost like an actual living, breathing animal that sometimes in some conditions needs this and in other conditions will need a totally different ingredient or a totally different method. Mm-hmm. So it's very interesting for me, a science student, to be able to kind of mesh the academic part of my life with this cooking part and really deep dive into all of the science and history behind the breads.
And there's so much to it. I mean, they're so amazing, the kind of breads that the only thing I remember about bread and science in school was bread mold. Wet a slice of bread, put it into a box and wait for the mold to grow and then look at it under the microscope. That's as much as I remember about bread and mold. Gosh, look at how the world's moved. Arathi, what do you have to say? How about all this wonderful bread making? Apart from, of course, partaking in it, what's your contribution been there?
So I was very fascinated with sourdough bread making, and I learned from some of the best in the country. And so I think that's passed on from there. And the fact that he has taken to bread so easily and makes such delicious bread is just amazing to me, because bread is considered very difficult, though the ingredients are very simple and it's just flour, water and yeast. But the entire process, and you are just a facilitator in it, right? So you have to have a lot of patience when it comes to bread making as well. And that is something which I've seen Advay develop at this stage of cooking. So there are a lot of life skills he's been developing in terms of patience, in terms of perseverance, in terms of curiosity, and that's been wonderful.
But how's it been, Advay? So if you try something out and it doesn't work, what then? I mean, do you keep at it, or do you say, oh, okay, now this is not something I want to do? Or are you somebody who says, I'll get this right and tabhi chodunga?
See, for me, it starts in the process only. So if I know I've messed up a dough or I've messed up something really badly, I will kind of step away for a second, give myself a second to grieve over the food, and then first try and find a way to fix it. If I can't fix it, then there's nothing you can do. It's a few ingredients that have gone, but it's such a learning opportunity. Like people keep saying, you learn from your losses. So I think it's worth the little that you lose in ingredients, that you lose in time, to be able to know that in the future you don't do this, you do a better way.
That's a good way of looking at it. So in all these wonderful experiences of cooking, what has been an epic fail?
An epic fail has to be one of the first things I made in the new kitchen, and one of the first times I tried making like the dried pasta, like the ready-made pasta, and it came out terribly. I forgot to add salt, pepper, nothing. It was just milk and flour and pasta tossed in.
There was this What did you do with it? I'm curious now. Did it get consumed or did it get junked or what happened?
We all drenched it in like ketchup and ate it.
Some of the older boys decided that they were not feeling too good and pasta was unhealthy for them, and we ordered out.
So, Ati, this whole thing about understanding the science, I know that in our previous conversation, you've been very passionate about, your entrepreneurial venture of Freshly Ground Kitchen and, the respect with which you treat the ingredients and why you do what you do and how you do what you do. So, how has that helped Advay? How have you knowingly or unknowingly held his hand through this?
I think when you want to teach the next generation a particular skill set, you have to also adopt a different means or a different path by which you teach them. Like when we were younger, I think cooking was taught predominantly to girls as a means or as a passage for marriage, or it was never taught as a skill set for survival. True. It was like, who will marry you if you don't cook? Absolutely. Or you need to cook. But it's no longer that. It's a skill set irrespective of gender. And if today I'm going to teach Advay a khichdi or something which is very basic, he might not be interested in it. But if I bring it down to his interest level, which would be the curiosity of how ingredients react with each other, what is the chemical reaction between things, why is a cupcake, what is the difference between baking soda and baking powder and things like that, I've immediately got his attention. And when I have his attention, I can always slip a khichdi in. Yes, absolutely. Because you have to do it. You have to teach them at a plane at which they enjoy learning it. And that is the whole point.
At the end of the day, it is, soul food and it is what you eat on a day-to-day basis. And it's always nice to know. Does it interest you, Advay? All the Indian cooking or the Bengali food that mom cooks on a day-to-day basis? Do you have your favorites there? Do you cook that or are you?
100%. That food is like, for me, it is my soul food, my comfort food is the traditional food that my mother makes. Like she said, just the khichdi or the machhir chhol. That kind of food is what makes me feel good and happy inside.
Do you cook those things as well?
I try, but it's just not the same.
It doesn't taste the same.
The mother has to do something different, right?
Right. And see, the mother has to be different and mother has to be, at the end of the day, I'm sure your mom's not telling you, that little secret ingredient and things like that. She's saying she's competitive. She's admitted it. So
yes.
she's probably keeping away that one very vital ingredient that, wo sirf mere haath se andar jayega. That's a possibility. So now when you cook, it's a full meal. Like we know that both of you cook together, but different aspects of a meal. So if you have to, let's say, plan a meal, a special meal that you might say for the rest of the family, what would your first choice be?
So usually my whole process is that I will be scrolling through some social media and I'll see something that looks really tasty or some recipe that I really want to try. And then I'll kind of I'll fall into like a rabbit hole of everything that you can learn about that recipe, about that food in like an hour. I will try and cram all of that into my brain and figure out exactly what that is supposed to be eaten with, what else have I seen that would be good with it, that could be good with it. And I will try and like mix and match and find something that will taste really good.
So that depends. It's not a matter of what ingredients are available at home. I know of a lot of people who go look at the fridge and say, okay, so this is what I have. This is what I have in the pantry. This is what I have in the fridge. And then decide what I want to cook. Does that also happen?
That also happens on some days when I'm completely lost on what to cook. I'll just go open up the fridge and see what vegetables we have, what meat do we have, and I'll try and find something based on that. But we are very blessed that we have a vegetable vendor and like a small kirana dukan right in our basement. So whenever I feel the urge to cook something and we don't have something that you need for it, some ingredient, there's always a very high chance that I'll just be able to walk down and get it.
Those are again complete bonuses of, I think, this day and age. You don't have to go far away. vegetable shopping to, or make a list in advance to be able to do that. This is really amazingly interesting because all of us get lost. Aarti, you get lost also? Aaj kya banaye?
Oh, absolutely. Because, and especially when you're passionate about cooking, even if it's a simple dal chawal sabzi, you want to do something different with that dal chawal sabzi. You want to make the tarka different, or you want to treat the sabzi different, cut it differently, or put some different masala. So there are a lot of times when you're doing it, we have 3 hot meals a day, and you're doing it every single day, keeping in mind what each one likes. It's sometimes you're lost. Sometimes it's like, what do I make? And that's when Advay comes to the rescue. If ever I'm lost as to what I don't feel like cooking, I'll suddenly find this kid in the kitchen, and after half an hour he'll come out and he'll say, Mama, I've cut these vegetables, now you can make. And I don't get angry about it. I find it very inspiring. And I'm like, wow, now I know what to make. So it just feels nice that someone's like kind of done a part of it. And then you are back to square one, excited and decided, okay, this is what I'm going to make.
The decision-making process, the basic decision-making is taken out of your hand. The fact that you have to sit and think, aaj kya banana hai, once that is taken out of your hands. So I remember my mom was saying that all the time. Kya khana hai? Nahi pata. She said, nahi pata is not available in the kitchen. So if you tell me what you want to eat, I can cook anything for you, but I need to know what.
So most of the times मैं पूछती नहीं हूँ कि क्या खाना है. अब जो बना है वो खाओगे. It is me, my ingredients and the kitchen. अभी if I have to ask each person क्या खाओगे, I mean दोपहर हो जाएगी.
Finished. You'll be only sitting and cooking alag-alag meals for alag-alag people.
Exactly. Yeah.
But this whole experience of being able to cook like this, has it inspired you to decide and go do something else with it? Like, we have so many things happening out there, the master chef and the this and the that. Advay, has it, ever interested you? Do you see yourself doing something like that?
I am one of those people that can't see more than 2 steps into the future. I really don't know what is going to happen in my life. All I know is that food, whatever role it plays, it will play a very integral role in my life.
Such a good way to be, no more than 2 steps ahead. Yes, I know, gosh, imagine looking farther ahead and not knowing what's coming your way. But I think that 2 steps is absolutely perfect. Aarti?
And also, Payal, the thing is that though we are very competitive with each other, and I think as a family also we're very competitive, but it is like in-house. And for us, food is more the passion of it. So yes. I don't think any of us have really thought about it in that sense. We just ask every day in the morning, it's like, today what are we going to make? Or if I'm going to make this today, who can I share it with? It's just the love of cooking.
It's just putting that thing together. It's putting that meal, deciding, making that decision and getting all the things together and getting down to doing it. It's that whole process that is invigorating.
And meal times are very happy times for us. Like whether it's simple dal chawal sabzi or anda curry rice or something fancy, meal times are very happy times for us because it's made with a lot of love and a lot of passion, a lot of heart.
And that's such a big blessing to be able to appreciate what we have and to be able to, pass that on to a child or anybody else, that whole sense of giving and taking and receiving, and all with gratitude, all with happiness. I think there's nothing better than, those values to instill in a child. Advay?
And one thing I want to add out here is, having listened to most of your episodes, especially on the regional cuisines and being inspired by all the beautiful people you've been bringing up and talking about their regions, it's inspired Advay and me to start trying traditional snack recipes. So we are like, one by one, we're picking up snacks from different regions, like what they would make for Diwali or any function. And we are trying to learn how to do it the traditional way, like murukku and other things.
That's so fabulous. Oh gosh. All that is really, really, I mean, those are not even things.
A big role. You've played a big role in that. I mean, your whole episodes with your regional coverage has really got us excited, and we're waiting to try the recipe shared from Assam. And we're like, we've got a list now. We've got, okay, Payal has said this. Now we have to do this before she puts up a next episode.
Thank you so much. I feel so happy because I'm getting excited with every passing episode, every person that I speak with, and every little thing that somebody brings to me. It's the sense of excitement only builds. So it makes me buy ingredients and keep them and annoy the rest of the people in my house because I don't do anything with it very quickly. I have to be in a mood, but I have to have the ingredients available. I don't have the luxury like Advay to walk downstairs and get it. So I annoy people in my house quite a bit with it, but well, we're all learning. So this is really wonderful. I'm so happy. Thank you so much for that feedback because it makes me really happy to know that I'm getting motivated and I'm getting excited, and the excitement is passing through the episodes. I think the people who are sharing it with me will be just as happy to know about it. So I think it's wonderful, and it's been such an eye-opener. And Advay, it's been an absolute pleasure to hear you speak. I really hope that you continue to enjoy your cooking, continue to grow with it, and maybe someday soon, I'm going to taste all that you're cooking and enjoy it, and be able to relish. And I'm also the kind of person who likes to do the know the where and how and why not and everything of things. So I think it'll make for a very interesting afternoon. So thank you so much for joining me here today, and I'm sure our listeners have had a wonderful time listening to you.
So thank you so much for having me on the podcast, and I really hope that someday soon we can show up at your doorstep with freshly baked bread.
Oh gosh, from your mouth to your mother's ears, because that's as far as we want to go right now. Mother's the whole driver here. So your mother's listening.
2 steps.
No. Now we don't want 2 steps at all. Now 2 steps is very limiting. Please, let's not do 2 steps here. Let's look ahead of, a little further. Thoda sa. So Advay, it's been really interesting knowing all the things that you do and all that you've done. But it's tradition here in our show where, we like our guests to share with us one favorite recipe, something that they love making and, would like us to try as well. What is your favorite recipe that you think all our listeners should be making?
A recipe that I think a lot of people should try to make and make as a group, and a really easy recipe that will be really fun to try is the sugar cookie recipe.
Okay.
So for it, you need 4 cups of flour, a third cup of cornstarch, 3/4 teaspoon of salt, a cup of unsalted butter. But if you're using salted butter, you can always just reduce the salt to about a half a teaspoon.
Right.
A cup of sugar, 2 eggs, and about a teaspoon of vanilla extract.
Okay.
So you have to sift your flour, cornstarch, and salt all together into a large bowl. And you can cream the butter and sugar together with a stand mixer or with a hand mixer.
Right.
Then while mixing, add the eggs one at a time. You can scrape down the sides of the bowl if it feels like too much of the mixture has stuck to the sides. Add your teaspoon of vanilla extract and mix to combine everything.
Right.
Then you can take a spatula and slowly pour in the flour mixture and mix until everything is well incorporated.
Okay.
Then a dough will form. So you put the dough in a plastic bag or in a covered bowl and just chill it in the refrigerator so it forms up slightly. Once it's chilled, you can place it on a rolling mat or just on a slightly floured surface. Sprinkle with a little flour and roll out with a rolling pin.
Okay.
You can move the dough around and turn it so it doesn't stick. Then using a circular cookie cutter or any shape you like, cut out your cookies, take away the extra scraps and re-roll for more cookies.
Right.
Place on a non-stick baking sheet and bake at 375 Fahrenheit or about 190 Celsius for 12 minutes.
Okay. And so what are these going to be? Are these going to be soft to the touch once they're done on top? Are they, what are the, factors that we need to keep in mind here? Tips?
So these cookies should turn out slightly pale golden brown, and they'll smell very good. An aroma will waft off of them like a bakery, and they'll have a slight snap to them, and they'll be almost biscuity. But if you prefer a softer cookie, you can always just reduce the cornstarch to a quarter cup. But if you're using your cookies more for the shape and you want those laser sharp edges, you can increase the cornstarch to about a half a cup. This cookie dough is one of the best recipes for a beginner, especially because it doesn't require chilling the dough for about an hour or so. It just chills for a couple minutes in the refrigerator. And the dough comes together very easily. It's not a very complicated process.
And so when we are, using the spatula to fold in the flour, are we still using the cake-like cut and fold, or is it just blending it all together, or how is it?
It doesn't really matter if you're using a very figure 8 shape or if you're just mixing it together. You're just trying to get it to come together in a dough, in a loose dough. It won't be very stiff.
Okay,
it should be an almost Play-Doh-like consistency.
So it has nothing to do with, we don't have to worry about the rising and the falling of anything over here.
No, you just have to incorporate everything together really well.
Perfect. And sugar, dusting it with sugar, dusting it or anything, any special toppings?
Once the cookies have baked and cooled, you can cover them with royal icing, and here is when you can really customize these cookies. So you could also add extra flavorings to the dough itself. You could try different extracts, like an almond extract would be really good, or adding cinnamon or other flavorings. And the topping, you can do just the classic royal icing, which again is quite easy to make. Or you could dip them in a chocolate ganache, or you can really get creative with how you're decorating these, and you could try different shapes and different colors.
Yum, this sounds really good. So one more question. You say non-stick baking sheet. Any specifications to that, or can someone use something else and just dust or probably line the sheet or something like that?
Any flat baking tray will do. Just line it with some parchment paper, or you could also just add a little butter and coat it with a sprinkle of flour.
That's it. Just butter in and dust it with a little flour, or just line it with parchment paper and perhaps just cover it as well.
The cookies won't really stick to the pan much. So you don't have to prep it too much. Just a little bit of a thin layer of butter and a sprinkling of flour all over will be enough.
Perfect. So these cookies, when they come out, by your recipe, are going to be, snappy cookies. They'll break and snap. It won't be soft unless we modify the recipe like you've mentioned, correct?
Yeah, it's all about what kind of cookies you want. The recipe is very malleable that way. It's easy to kind of change the recipe for your desired outcome. But if you follow it with 1/3 cup of the cornstarch, you'll get you get a cookie with a bit of snap and a slightly hard cookie, not a very soft cookie.
Yeah. Those are interesting ones, because the soft cookie always leaves me wondering whether I've done something wrong. Is it supposed to be like this? Is it fully cooked or not? So I think personally, I like a snap cookie because I know it's done, it's cooked and it's fine.
Yeah, also I find that the slightly harder cookies are easier to decorate as well. Because I find that some of the softer cookies, under the weight of a really heavy royal icing or a chocolate ganache, can sometimes cave in on the center, especially if you're doing kind of thick cookies.
Absolutely. Yes, that's true. If you want a chewy cookie, then you have to do something totally different. And I think it's always best to stick to a particular recipe, at least the basic recipe, and then work around with various things. Thank you so much, Advay. I hope you're going to give us a written copy of this recipe so we can add it to our description, and people like me who forget recipes can read through them and remember to get them right.
Yes.
Thanks again. Thanks so much.
Thank you.
Thanks, Arathi. Thank you so much. It's been an absolute joy listening to the two of you. Here's wishing both of you many, many, many more wonderful experiments in the kitchen, and lots more cooking, lots more love, lots more sharing, and lots of blessings. Thank you so much.
Thank you, Payal. Thank you for doing this episode, because it is so special and so precious. And I hope a lot more listeners will come up with what they've cooked with their children, and they'll put it up in your comment section, and we will be able to cook them together.
Absolutely, that's totally a brilliant idea. तो ये आपने सुना आज का हमारा वैलेंटाइंस का एपिसोड. आपको ये एपिसोड कैसा लगा हमें जरूर बताइएगा. ये इस तरह का जो प्यार है, इस तरह का जो बंधन है, these are not things that come about so easily. There's something cosmic in all of them. तो इस एपिसोड को आज इसी थॉट पे बंद करते हुए अगले एपिसोड तक आपसे विदा लेती हूँ. नमस्कार.